Elena's so nice. Like I asked
Yeah.
her for an extension.
Well, not Selena, she didn't come to practice, but
Because there was no way I was gonna get it done. And she said, yeah, no problem. I completely understand.
She's the best.
Yeah.
I'm like a fangirl of her.
Yeah.
I'm always
I wanna
talking
be
to
a mom.
Josephine about her, and I'm like, I want to be her. I love her stories.
Yeah.
Do you have her both in negotiation skills?
No, only presentation skills. Yeah.
I have her in both classes, and I love her.
Yeah. Moyosor Saka. Not too late to leave. Anyone else wanna?
Are you nervous?
No. Like a little bit.
Don't worry.
No.
You know it perfectly.
Yeah.
And
But
just
it's a
think of
new-
it, you're not doing the TED Talk.
Yeah. But that's easier because then you don't follow really a script. Now
That's
we're
harder.
introducing other people.
Yeah.
TED Talk, you
Chill.
talk about your own story. It should come naturally, you know?
But if that goes wrong, you know, like people's focus when you sit there, it's not on us,
Yeah.
but on the talk. I don't know,
Yeah,
it
true.
helps me relax.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Oh, I need water.
What is
Do you have the little device?
Should I go first?
Oh, it's there. Oh, I don't know when do we start. Okay, I'm gonna fall out of the heels, I think. If I fall, I'm just gonna lay down.
Just like 1 minute.
Yeah, no worries.
So I can get the time set up. Whenever when you're talking, you can take your mask off.
Yeah, okay.
Welcome to the first TEDx Geneva Business School Barcelona event. We're thrilled to have all of you here, as you are the most important part of this event. My name is Julia Calzada, and with my colleague Elina, we're gonna be your master of ceremonies for this evening.
Good evening to you all. Today's program will be led by a very interesting theme, lessons learned. Are we as humans capable to learn from our mistakes? Clearly not. So today we will embark together on the journey to try and answer this question, if there is an answer, of course. The ideas that we hear in here today hopefully will spark will spark conversations not only during today at this event, but in the years to come afterwards as well.
Before we get started, I would like to go over a few rules. Please don't take any flash photography, turn off your phones, and most importantly, get your brains ready for some interesting ideas. I would also like to inform you there's going to be a short, small break between both talks today.
Yeah, so now let's get ready to start the night off by welcoming Ted.
Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
So, are we all ready? The first topic we will explore today is how close is too close to comfort? Surviving near bankruptcy. Tom van der Heijden is a multilingual entrepreneur, business lecturer, and networker. He's a faculty member in Barcelona and teaches international management. Please welcome Tom to the stage.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Tom, and I got a question for you. Have you ever been this close to a bankruptcy? Probably not, right? Well, it's a terrible experience, I can tell you. It's terrible, of course, for your business. It is also, as a consequence, bad for your team. It may affect your family, and chances are it would also even affect your health. So it is really not a fun thing. So could I recommend it to you? Maybe, maybe not. Let's have a look at that a little bit deeper, no? Because if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be also prepared for this type of entrepreneurial near-death experience that I lived through myself. And hopefully I can share a couple of interesting insights with you. So let me give you a little bit of background. I have what you can call entrepreneurial roots. Okay? My parents had a small business, and pretty much for as long as I remember, I always have thought that I'd like to have one day a business myself. I got that opportunity 18 years ago when actually I got fired in my last job. But that is maybe a topic for another TED Talk, right? So I started together with two business partners, a company, and we focused on a concept that at that time in Europe was not yet very well known, namely sourcing services. What we did is we helped companies in the West that wanted to start or improve their purchasing activities in Asia, China in particular. And that went actually quite well. For a number of years, it went really good until disaster struck. Disaster meaning the 2008 financial crisis. That crisis had a huge impact on a lot of places, a lot of people, a lot of countries, and among others, it caused that in a number of places, the building industry totally collapsed. Among others, some of the markets where we were active. And we were actually very focused on building tools, building materials, and sourcing these sort of things. No? I can tell you that pretty much 90% of our customers from before the financial crisis, they disappeared. They vanished. They didn't survive that crisis. My business partners as well, they got cold feet, and they sort of wanted to get out. So they left. To be honest, I can't blame them. At that time, it looked pretty bad. But I thought, let's go on a little bit with the sourcing activity, and as they say, the best defense is actually an attack. So I thought, I invest a bit more, I hire some people, and I start an additional activity to balance it out, namely the opposite. I was trying to start a business here, an activity focused on export services, helping companies from here trying to sell in China. Good. So I set up a program that, well, I have to say I'm still a bit proud of it, was really nice. And we managed to convince about 30 producers in 6 different countries to sign up for us. And we managed, particularly, we were focused on food and beverage. Okay? So we managed to get beer, wine, olive oil, sangria, olives themselves, chocolate, a lot of different things. We managed to get that on the shelves of supermarkets in China, get it on internet portals, distributors of all kinds. It was really a fun time. We really enjoyed it. Yet, it didn't work. It didn't work for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons was that the person standing here in front of you made a couple of basic mistakes. One of the mistakes that I made has to do with a functional area in which, I don't know, I still find it a bit of magic, which is human resources. Selecting people, hiring people. I've hired a lot of people in my life, and actually fantastic people. Some of them are actually still in my company, working for me, fantastic professionals. I'm really proud of them. But I also hired a few that tremendously disappointed me. And it was actually the case in the export activity. Some folks really let me down. And at a certain moment, the situation went so bad that we started really bleeding money. And as you know, cash is the blood of your company. You run out of cash, it's game over. So at a certain point, I saw that coming. I remember we had like a couple of months cash left. It was really a very stressful situation. And I decided to pull the plug on the export activity, much to my regret. At that time, more than half of the staff was dedicated to export. 2/3 of the staff had to go. Terrible experience. Really not fun to do, but I had to do it. And I think actually, it's fair to say that I did it in a decent way, because I'm still on speaking terms with literally all of them. And as a bit of a fun anecdote, a few years afterwards, when I went to China on a sort of combination of business and tourism trip, I took my youngest daughter with me. We went, in the very beginning of the trip, we went to the Great Wall near Beijing. And the people who organized the excursion for us were actually a couple, husband and wife, who a few years before had been sort of the main people behind the import formalities of the food and beverage in China. You guessed it, they were fired as well. So during the entire day, I was sort of not entirely sure would they sort of have revenge and push us off the Great Wall, but no, they didn't. They behaved really well. Actually, during lunch, I remember we talked about it again, and we brought up some memories, some fun memories of all the things that we did, and they understood. They still said, hey, no hard feelings. We tried really hard. We worked on it, but eventually it didn't work out too bad, so you took the right decision. Good. So I went on, and I decided to get back to basics. Sourcing it was again. And fortunately, we got that back on track really in a good way. And in the following years, the following sort of 4 years, we managed to multiply turnover by 4, and we got back into profitability, so that was good. On top of that, I'd always kept a little bit of an open mind for alternative opportunities, looking around what was possible. And one of the things was actually suggested by a close family member of mine who said, why don't you go teaching, business teaching? In the beginning, I thought, what's that of an idea? But then I did it, and it worked out actually pretty well. It was a bit of a winter activity also, so what was a bit of a plan B also became a plan A. So now I got 2 plans A. I'm a bit stressed as well, but it's good stress because I'm enjoying all the things that I'm doing, of course, no? So what sort of lessons can we maybe learn from this story? Well, if you are at a certain point confronted with the unthinkable, what do? The unthinkable for me was after years working on a business and growing and doing great things and enjoying myself, all of a sudden you're in front of that potential bankruptcy. That sounds like unthinkable. You can't imagine that will actually happen to you. Well, if that happens, you probably also have to dare doing the unthinkable also. And the unthinkable for me, in terms of doing things, meant three things. In the first place, as you guessed it already, I really enjoyed the export activity. And if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to choose an activity that you really love. I love that one. But it wasn't profitable. So I was wasting my time. So I had to cut off that part. I was enjoying myself, but it was a waste of time. So stopping an activity that you love really hurts. Okay? It's not great. The second thing is something I mentioned before, is the firing of people. I can assure you there's so many courses on entrepreneurship, and it's all about constructive things, building up things, investing, new products, new services, hiring new people. They don't tell you a lot about the destructive thing. Okay? When you're confronted with that, it's really terrible. It's not an enjoyable thing. And the third thing is a bit of a wrap-up, sort of a general thing, is that once at a certain point, you need to face reality. And what I mean with that is a lot of people, actually the vast majority according to statistics, people who have a business, when it doesn't go well, they keep on going. They keep on going, and they keep on thinking, tomorrow will be the better day. Next week, we'll get that order that we're expecting from that customer. Next month, the bank will give us a new loan. And it doesn't happen. And when it doesn't happen, they crash the whole thing. And I don't think that's a fair thing. In my case, I thought it was important to try to save at least the sourcing activity. Those folks, they had nothing to do with what happened in the export activity. It was not their fault. So I tried to save that, and it turned out to be okay. So it's an important lesson as well, that you don't crash everything, and that you don't leave behind you a trail of, I wouldn't say dead bodies, but lost jobs, lost opportunities, and maybe a lot of people who can't pay anymore their mortgage, who can't go on a holiday because the whole thing crashed. It's just not fair, okay? And an extra sort of conclusion apart from these three things, I think, is that if you do decide to take action, do not hesitate. Go firmly for it. Take the initiative, go get over with it, okay? Hesitation is your worst enemy, because hesitation may show weakness. And weakness will be abused by your customers, by your creditors, by your competitors, maybe even by the odd disloyal team member. Fortunately, I didn't have any of those, but it's a very common thing, okay? So let me get back to my question in the beginning. Is it worthwhile to get through such an experience? Is it really worthwhile? No, of course, let's not fool ourselves. Let's try to avoid that, okay? If you have some time in advance that you see trouble coming, take whatever sort of initiative is necessary, but don't get that far, okay? Because it's really stressful. But what happens if eventually you do get bankrupt? It's not the end of the world, okay? Life goes on. Actually, there's a couple of really interesting examples of famous people that we identify with success who always also been through bankruptcy. One that comes to mind is, for instance, Abraham Lincoln. You probably wonder, what does he have to do with this? Well, he started having a store. He set up a store with a partner, and they started buying a lot of materials from here and there on credit, and they overdid it. They overplayed their hand, and all of a sudden they had a lot of debt, which they couldn't cope with. Now, you have to take into account, in that time, which is more or less sort of the first half of the 19th century, bankruptcy, in particular in the US, was a very different thing of what it is now. Nowadays, there are mechanisms whereby you can sort of settle certain debts, you can talk to creditors, you can arrange things. It's very formal, okay? You can move on with your life. That was not the case in the time of Lincoln. So he ended up paying off debts for the next 17 years. Can you imagine dragging that pack back with you all the time, no? So then he did another thing, and he started getting into politics. That worked out pretty well for him. Actually, maybe I took the wrong decision getting in teaching. I don't know. I have to think about it. So, and another good example of somebody who sort of went over a bankruptcy and became very successful is Walt Disney. Walt Disney, about a century ago, he started a small studio doing animated fairy tales. Yeah, that was a thing at that time. So, good. He started going. He had a financial backer, but that backer went bankrupt himself. So he ended up with a lot of debt, couldn't pay his staff, and the whole studio went bankrupt. But a few years afterwards, and that's an important thing, he got a family loan and he started a new studio. And then he started something with a little mouse, you know, and that actually went out to be a success, and then he transformed into the Walt Disney that we know. So if you do get bankrupt, As I said before, keep an open mind. Count on the support of the people that surround you, your family, your contacts. And if you're a good person, I'm quite sure they will help you around. And before you know, off you go for a new entrepreneurial venture. Thank you very much for your attention.
Incredible, Tom. Thank you. Great way to start off this evening's ideas. So while we're changing microphones and doing some technical things, feel free to maybe discuss anything that you found interesting between each other or just drink some water. We don't need the remote.
I don't think so. And how long was it?
Yeah, I don't do things. I want to make people hungry. I want to make people hungry and thirsty.
Está perfecto, no se quedará mucho. Fuera. Excelente. Yo la vimos esta mañana y a mí me ha parecido como otro toro. Sí. ¿Sabes lo que te quiero decir? Otro mundo. El cortarte el pelo ha sido bueno.
Con dos cojones.
Me he dicho, hostia, era este. Ahora ya, nada ya. Now we'll concentrate on this beautiful lady. Speak to us about 4 languages that I have fucking idea.
Ready? Yes, so now let's welcome our second speaker of the night, one of our most recent alumni at Geneva Business School, Sarah Jack. Sarah's passion for learning and innovation has led her to start her entrepreneurial adventure combined with some of her other passions, hospitality and sustainability. Today she will present the role of mistakes when learning new languages. So please come up.
So, my name is Sarah, and I'm an experienced language learner. And I would like to start this talk today by also asking you a question. Please think about the last time you did an embarrassing mistake. Now, think about if you will ever do that embarrassing mistake ever again. The answer is probably no. Embarrassment is actually a very powerful memory tool. And we know that embarrassment it's a very common tool when we learn languages. We make mistakes. So Martin Anthony, a professor in psychology at Horizon University and co-author of When Perfect Isn't Good Enough, was actually researching this. And he found that there are many people who still fear to make mistakes, even though we know that it's very important, right? So who else also it also connects to atelophobia, which is a mental illness referred to as perfectionism. Atelophobia is a fear of imperfection and making mistakes. And who also speaks about perfectionism is Brené Brown. She says that we get sucked into this perfectionism because we think basically that it will protect us. Her quote is, "Perfectionism is a belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect," which I think it refers to speaking as well, we can minimize or avoid the pain of blame, judgment, or shame. So to summarize that, perfectionists, they do not like to make mistakes. But to learn a language, we need to make mistakes, right? So that means that perfectionism is a huge barrier for language learner. So when we also make mistakes, when we also learn a language, we get frustrated, right? And we can maybe feel alone in these moments where we do not understand the grammar rules, or we can just not get to pronounce that simple word that we want to learn. But in these moments of frustration, we can think about that 1.2 billion people are learning a foreign language right now. So let me tell you my story. When I'm Polish, when I was 13 years old, I moved to Sweden, and I needed to learn Swedish from scratch. It was very hard. I remember I was struggling a lot, but quickly I understood that I needed to go out of my comfort zone. I needed to speak and try in order to learn, right? I got friends who understood that even though I didn't speak correctly, I got out of my comfort zone, and they helped me a lot. So I learned Swedish. When I was 19 years old, after high school, I moved to Australia to learn English. I never understood their accent, by the way. And there, once again, I was in the situation where I did not speak the local language. So I, from before, knew that I needed to try and be out there. So I did. And after 1 year in Australia, I felt confident speaking English. And 3 years ago, when I was 23 years old, I moved here to Spain, to Barcelona. And once again, I put myself in a life situation when I did not speak the local language. So, but with 2 languages under my belt already, I thought it would be easy. Well, it was not, and I was struggling a lot. It was a huge challenge. I, once again, needed to go out of my comfort zone. But now I can tell you that I feel confident speaking Spanish as well. So when I was doing my research about language learning, I wanted to see what happens if we Google benefits of language learning. And these ones are the following. So, of course, we know that we connect better with people if we speak a local language. Also, if we can advance in our career, knowing another language will make us, we make other opportunities. We can study or work abroad. Also, it feeds our brain. Obviously, learning a new thing boosts our memory. We see the world with different eyes, and also confidence. It's actually a little bit crazy that I'm standing here in front of you right now, because this is a huge thing for me. I am very nervous when it comes to public speaking, as you can see. But, and if you would see me when I was 13, that little shy girl, totally different. So this is for sure a proof that language learning gets you out there, outside of your comfort zone, and boosts your confidence. But from my experience now, when I speak 4 languages already, I can tell you that this is not only the things we learn while learning a language. In my opinion, we also get more other valuable tools for life, like adaptability. We get more flexible. We adapt better to life situations that face us. That also connects to acceptance, since we know how it is to be in a situation where we not speak the local language and how much we struggle with that. We know we can refer better to people that maybe do not speak our own language, right? This also connects to empathy. There was a study made in Chicago in 2015 that actually proved that multilingual people, they understood other people better, even though the sentence were not really clear or a little bit fuzzy. They could do that. And also we know that empathy is a key to problem solving. And so it's not only boost our confidence, but also make us better leaders. And empathic leaders are the best leaders. Creativity as well. So I cannot even tell you how many times I came up with words that don't exist by putting a word from Polish with Swedish and putting an English accent to it. and just hoping that this person I'm speaking to will understand what I mean. And sometimes it actually worked. So, and that's also proof that language learning is boosting our creativity. But the factor that I want to point out the most today, that I think that it teaches us the most, is that by learning a new language, we are learning to be okay with making mistakes. So science is something we cannot avoid. We just need to do it. And we need to, then we learn that we can do also mistakes in other fields as well. So think about when we were little babies, we were learning to speak for the very first time, and it was a very natural process. We were experimenting and playing with the words. So why would it be different the second time we learned to speak, but in another language, using other words, right? So I believe that we should not fear making mistakes, and we should follow our instinct. And as well, I think that learning languages boosts our confidence. It's, of course, make us have better opportunities. It boosts our empathy towards people. It basically makes us better human beings. So be out there, speak, try, and it will just make you better, I promise. And I would like to end this talk with saying that language learning for me is a real proof that human beings are capable to learn from mistakes.
Thank you, Sarah. What a great way to get our minds working. We're going to have a short break and then continue with our next speaker.
When it changed over to 7 o'clock, it went.
Now we are off to our next speaker, Ricardo Giovanni, who came from Madrid to be with us here tonight. Ricardo is a member of the Madrid faculty and specializes in crisis management, operations and supply chain, and family business management. Today, he's going to discuss the belief that humans are capable of change individually, but collectively, they might need some help. Welcome, Ricardo.
I wake up every morning with the belief that that day is going to be the best day of my life. Yes, I'm one of those annoying, positive people, weirdly optimistic, and extremely pushy to make people go forward, regardless of what we have ahead of us. I am a realist too, don't get me wrong. I'm a realist, don't get me wrong. Life is hard, even sometimes complicated, right? But I've had my own share of mistakes, my own my own group of failures that I try to be better, and now I'm gonna have them for the future, so I'm gonna have more. But no, I do apologize. I am an annoying person. Yes, I am annoying, I am positive, I'm optimist, I love the world, I love life, and I love each and every human being individually. Collectively, in a group, in a society, there I have my doubts. See, collectively, I think the human race definitely needs a little bit more of work, right? When you get 3 or 4 people together, you know, that social need comes out. It hits, it kicks you down, bam, right? And like Maslow said in his hierarchy of needs, once you've already fulfilled your physiological need and your safety need, the social needs come out. And trust me, that was one of the most important social needs that we can have. Belongingness is the key to this chat. In 1995, Bonnie Haggerty and Kathleen Patuski wrote a research paper about the measure, so developing the measure of the sense of belonging. In that research paper, huge, don't try to read it, it's complicated. I'm not a psychologist, so it actually got me really well thinking. You know, it talked about the idea that it was a physiological and psychological well-being for that individual. It was actually a health mental concept individually. It's where we create our entity, where we create our identity, where we're gonna be, or what we want to be eventually, right? That makes us think that all these people that I love, all these people that I cherish, all of you human beings that I've been trying to pull up to be heard, makes me and gives me some doubts that you actually collectively are able and capable of learning to change from your mistakes. Let me give you an example. Every day, all of you, especially the young ones, right? You open one of those two most famous social apps in the world, and you start scrolling down and liking the button like automatically, right? Without even thinking, just because they're either followers or they are your friends. You don't even look at the post. You may not even like it, but you're pushing it like if it was a no tomorrow, right? Well, that's exactly why I don't believe collectively we are able to work more on that thing. Once you're in that group, once you believe, once you're in that tribe, right? You lower your defenses. You feel comfortable, and you let others people's opinion get stronger than yours, right? You start thinking, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe my thoughts are not good enough. And you start to diminish your own opinion, your own ideas, your self-concept person starts disappearing in that other huge group. That makes us think that you are going to become, your idea is just to become one part of the pack, not defending your needs, your desires, the way that you should be fighting it. And that, for me, it's a huge mistake. That doesn't mean that sometimes we do get a change of choice. Somebody presents you with another option, they actually present you facts, they actually present you analysis, and they debate with you, and you actually get that drive to change your opinion. And at that moment you say, okay, I accept it, I can change my opinion. Trust me, I do that repeatedly every week. I change a lot of opinions, but trust me, they change my own a lot of the times too. It is extremely important. People that know me say that I'm a loner, that I like to be alone. Well, that's not true. I love to be with friends. I don't have a lot of friends, but you know, I like to be with friends and with people. But I do have my own ideas. I have my own beliefs and my ways of doing. I'm actually a little special, don't get me wrong. I'm a little special, look at my hair, I'm like, you know. So no, even my students tell me that. But I'm just trying, right, to believe in my things. I have my beliefs, my thoughts, my own ideas, my ways of doing things, and I'm not gonna impose that to absolutely anyone. But I'm not gonna let anyone try to change those thoughts, those beliefs, those things, those ideas that I have inside of me without analysis, without facts, and trust me, without a debate, okay? This is imperatively very, very important to do that. Now that I was saying that, I actually felt like if I could look like a little bit of a superior being, right? Like if I was thinking, you know, I'm always right, or something like that, not even close. I've been schooled so many times, especially by the most self-conscious person that I know, and Australian, my wife, Lucy. Trust me, you don't want to sleep in the sofa. So it's not only that she schools me, but I also get it, and I also understand what she's trying to get for. But his self-consciousness is amazing, and she schools me absolutely every day. Trust me, I will not be talking here with this speech without my wife. Once, Jose Maria Gay Liviana, one of the most important Spanish economists who actually died not long ago, A teacher of mine once told me, truth will make you stronger, but it will piss you off first. It will definitely piss you off. Have you ever thought about being corrected? You thought all your time that you were right, that you were pushing that, you were actually debating with other people, and then somebody actually gives you proof of the error, the mistake that you've done, and they present it in front of you. It hurts. It hurts a lot in very different ways. Sentimental, political, right? Educational. You with your telephones. You guys need to learn how to walk on the streets instead of actually going that way, right? But it does hurt. It does hurt. But you know what? It makes you stronger. It makes you a better you. It makes you a more prepared person to come out and be able to debate and communicate with other people. I think that's actually the most interesting thing about failure, about making mistakes and accepting them, which is something we normally don't do, especially collectively. So that's also another reason that I want to talk to you about. Sense of belonging is extremely important to all of us. We all need to believe. We all need to be part of something, right? We're all members of sports club, political parties, schools, charities, right? Without that sense of belonging, we couldn't have communities. We couldn't have families. We couldn't even have organized government. Not that we actually care that much for that, right? We are always trying to be better. We are always trying to find a solution to all those problems. And we need to change. We need to change. And how do we change that? Well, I believe, but maybe by communicating and empathizing. You know, communicate and empathize. Those are two actions that are pretty simple, right? Two pretty simple actions. But they're very complicated nowadays. I really believe so. Now, we talk a lot about empathy. We talk a lot about communication. We talk about leadership. We talk about too many things, probably. But we actually are not able to understand that empathy as part of ourselves. And when we communicate and we empathize, we are actually communicating and empathizing what we think the group is actually going to think or need to listen to, what they're going to want to hear, right, in that group. Because the biggest fear we have is losing, being an outcast in that group. The fear of not belonging or not being in one of those places, in one of those needs. We all make mistakes. Well, at least most of us. I've seen a couple faces, but you know, we all make mistakes, right? At least most of us, all right? But trust me, we make mistakes individually, and we do learn about them. Tell me you haven't had a failure, you haven't had a mistake, you haven't made something wrong, and then you get home and you sit down on your bed and you go like, yep, it was me. Yep, it was my mistake. I believe we have an angel in one shoulder and a devil on the other. So when you're sitting down on that bed and you're telling yourself, yep, it was me, I made that mistake, mea culpa, that's your angel speaking. But then the devil comes out, right, and gets into your ear, into your other ear and whispers, but don't tell anyone. Be strong, be tough. Don't let other people know that you've actually made a mistake, because you could lose the respect and your position in that group in which you think you belong, right? And those things are important. Those makes us a little bit more paranoid every now and then. We actually like to hide our weaknesses and to falsely represent our strengths. That's one of the biggest things we do. We hide our weaknesses and we definitely falsely represent our strengths. We definitely need to be something else. I believe that in that same research that I was telling you about Haggerty and Potuskus, they actually define sense of belonging as an individual experience of a person to belong to an integral system. So you needed to prove yourself first. You need to learn about yourself. You need to become your own self-opinionated person before you actually choose or decide to go to another group or collective or communally. Because if not, that mistake is going to hurt you. It's going to take you with it, and you're going to start losing your own thoughts, your own ideas. It's all going to blur into just one thing, and you're just going to be a follower. You're just going to be just that. You guys know how they call a leader without followers? A guy taking a walk. That's exactly. You need to be the leader. You need to at least fight to put your intentions in front of the debate. Sometimes we're in the group and we start talking and we're, getting into the conversation and we decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to put my option. I'm going to start talking. I'm going to stay, and then you promptly adapt it to what the people or the group is actually being the mood. You start talking about your ideas. You see the faces and you're like, yeah, but yes, but I love you all. I love you all. You adapt it to that thing. That's a mistake. We need to fight. What's going to happen if we do it? What's the problem? What if we open up? What if we speak? What if we break the status quo and we actually not impose, but explain our decision, our position, put it in there? Are we scared of being wrong? Are we that scared of being wrong? We need to do that. We need to put our ideas, to debate our ideas. And if you actually put your ideas, and the other person is also an open person that actually gets your ideas passionately and actually understands your premises and debates with you, you may even get to some point and find an actual social correct result. I have my own personal doubts, and here it is. That's where I have my doubts in collective. My collective groups being able to understand and learning and changing from their mistakes, I have my doubts there. And I do have my doubts because I lose voices, I lose options, I lose ideas that if I had them individually together, I had more data to be able to find a solution to that problem. But if you all start thinking about the same way and that the bigger opinion gets on top of all of you, then I don't have anything to do. We cannot actually find the individual ideas and thoughts and put them all together and be able to find a better solution to all of us. In an attempt to actually write a book about motivation for young entrepreneurs, I actually started writing a book with the premises that 2 + 2 is never 4. Never 4. In business, it's 3 when you're buying, 5 when you're selling, right? So 2 + 2 is never 4. And the principle was that I could always, that I could not trust in any absolute, that there was always a solution forward. There was always an alternative, that I needed to move forwards, that in doubt, you do. That's the only way I see collective people learning from their issues, their problems, and being able and capable to change. But we need more help. And you know what more help means? More help means knowledge, education. Education should be the silver bullet that we all use and trust and believe in. We should build castles, cathedrals of education, where our young new generations can come and study. 4 years ago, I was able to become a teacher in higher education. It's probably the best activity that I have every week. I love it, I enjoy it, I have my best time of my life. I learn more from teaching than what I'm actually teaching. Trust me, I enjoy it very, very much. But it comes with risks and responsibilities. We are forming the next generation, the ones that are going to take care of us when we're old, and the ones that are creating the path for our sons and daughters. Are we doing a good job? Don't know. Semper pos, said the Latin book. Always positive, right? So let's all be annoying, individually and collective. Let's all open our minds, start talking, say what you believe, debate, communicate. Be horrendously positive and optimist, okay? Be, please, thoughtful. Think about each and all subjects. Get your own self-opinionated person, and don't accept that we are always right, but do not accept that we are always wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Ricardo. It was really great that you got to share your idea with us today. Now we're going to have a bit of a longer break. So we're going to switch between the two classrooms so that all the attendees get to see the people speaking live. So feel free to, I don't know where the volunteers are, outside. Please leave in an orderly manner. And then, yeah, we have about a 10-minute break in between.
Thank you. Thank you. No, want the picture? Ah, okay.
Yeah, feel free to sit down and. They're a bit messy.
Sorry.
Oh. I was about to throw up, trying to hold it in. No.
Hi, congratulations. You did great.
No?
Yeah.
Just laughing
For
it
sure,
off.
no.
When I was practicing,
But
I was
it's
doing
hard.
all
It's
down
hard
it
to
to
stand
do
up
it,
there
but
and
sadly
talk.
I couldn't whip
You
it
really
out
did a
too,
good job.
so
Yeah.
maybe for afterwards, when the wine comes out. then,
For sure. Yeah. And it happens, and it's your first time, and it's totally normal.
Yeah, yeah.
I liked it, really. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Do you want to get a picture as well?
Yeah, but at the end.
At the end, yeah.
That there's no one.
Hey, hoe gaat het? Godver, ik ben bijna ziek. Waarom zijn jullie hier?
Ja, met mijn baas van Mabel.
Oh, dat is hem. Ik dacht, ik ken hem ergens. Ik dacht gewoon een vader van iemand of zo.
Ik zag je in Den Haag.
Ja? Ja, ik was er een week geleden. Oh, op Insta. Ik dacht dat je me echt...
Oye, sí, mira,
Zelf
este
nee.
contacto
Ja, ik ging
se
gewoon naar
llama
huis om met mijn
Astrid
ouders
y es
een beetje te
colombiana.
zijn.
Es una señora súper decente. Dile
Maar
que
jij
me
was in
conoces
Mallorca,
y tú le dices hace cuenta y que estoy buscando un depa
ongeveer nog...
en tal distrito.
Dit is zeg
tanto
maar
en mi
halfway,
budget, quiero
dus
vivir
nog
solo, que ve
30
tipo
minuten of
así.
zoiets.
Y ella
Maar
te ayuda
daarna
a
hebben we
encontrarlo
gratis
ya.
eten en
Súper, súper linda, decente y
alcohol
todo.
en alles.
Y cualquier cosa que necesites me puedes preguntar
Geen
igual.
idee.
Yo
Ik keek
viví
naar
ahí un
opium, is
rato,
40
entonces
euro.
feliz de ayudarte
Ja.
en lo que pueda.
Maar ik denk dat ik met mijn vriendin, like, we met this rich guy. We met this rich guy at Opium.
Ja.
En he offered to fly us. Hij gaat ons waarschijnlijk naar Londen vliegen dit weekend. Dus,
Wat? Wij mogen zijn ouders. Voor mijn guy. En die zo.
ja, maar waarom niet? Ik denk gewoon, weet je, je moet ze gewoon turn them on, maar dan don't give them anything. Weet je?
Grappig, hè?
Ja, maar als ik gratis naar Londen plug, dan is het helemaal... Ja. Ja, we gaan op zaterdag vliegen en zondag weer terug. Ja. En hij is ook rijk, dus misschien...
Say that like it's a show. Yeah.
Test. I'm testing this. ¿Te va? ¿Sí?
Welcome back. Our fourth speaker of the evening is Javier González Núñez. Javier is part of the Barcelona faculty, a strategic management expert, and he's passionate about education through his own work and teaching in institutions around the world, including as a consultant for the United Nations. Javier will share his ideas on entrepreneurship survival during a pandemic. Welcome, Javier.
So that's the first rule. Always bring all your friends to your conferences. And your students, before grading them, okay? Most seriously, I will speak to you about entrepreneurship, which is one of my passions. And actually, we started a company almost 2 years ago, okay? So I want to speak about entrepreneurship, but especially about entrepreneurship during crisis times and disruptive times, okay? No need to tell you that the COVID-19 was a crisis. I guess everyone experienced it. Sadly, we are getting over, so that's the good news. We learned a lot of things during this pandemic with our company. I want to give you the example of Tonic Teaching, which is my company. And Tonic Teaching is about teaching, okay, basically. So we do teach and we give conferences, okay? I want to share with you strategies, approaches, and tools to be an entrepreneur and to manage companies during crisis times. Not only pandemics, let's hope it's the only one we will have to live during our lifetime, probably yes, but financial crisis, political crisis, and any type of crisis, okay? Tonic Teaching is a combination actually of two passions, traveling, that we probably all have here, and another one which is teaching. And we try to combine this by traveling a lot. I want you to show a bit of empathy, my colleagues spoke about that, and to imagine how we started. Imagine that you're in February 2020, you will remember this, not that far ago, and you start a company, okay? Any company, or let's say, could be Tonic, but think about any company. You get a first client, a first customer that is giving you a lot of work. So you start working, you quit your job, okay? 1 month later, what happened? Lockdown. Traveling, not an option anymore. You can still teach online, right? And then your client filed up for bankruptcy. Okay? So the picture is this. This is the second rule. Always start a pitch or a speech positively. Okay? So you have no job, no client anymore, no activity, and you worked 1,000 hours for nothing. Okay? That's the beginning. Positive, no? Okay? Oh, another thing. You are in Belgium. Who visited Belgium here? Raise your hands, please. Okay? For those who didn't, it rains all the time. Okay? So no job, no money, no client, no activity, it rains. I told you that you can use this for all the types of crises. What do crises have in common? Okay, I have very fancy pictures. You can have the presentation at the end. A lot of changes, okay, and fast changes, faster than when it's not a crisis. Scary times, this is the image in the middle, okay? So people are scared to hire new services, and you are a new company, so it's difficult to get hired. And the third one, which is actually two things, more risks, or riskier times, okay, and more uncertainty, okay? Do an effort of memory here. We had no idea what was going on with the COVID, okay? We thought that paracetamol was killing you if you were taking it at the beginning. You remember those times? So we were getting information along the way, and we had to adapt and to change a lot, okay? This is the romantic part of the talk, okay? I will speak about one of the basics or the very important key success factors, which is your founding team, okay? The founding team, and the guy is here today if you want to say hi to him. The idea is that you need to be with people that support you no matter what, okay? So imagine, raining, no money, no job anymore, and alone. So that would be too much, okay? So you need to be with someone that supports you and also someone that adds value to what you are doing, okay? For instance, I'm a shy business person, as you can all see, okay? And my business partner is an IT engineer, okay? I know nothing about technology, okay? They had to explain me how to use this, okay? That's the idea. So you need to have people who have complementary skills to yours and create more value, okay? And the idea is that 1 + 1 should make more than 2, meaning that if 1 + 1 makes 2, just work alone, and you don't need to spend time talking to other people, okay? I came here with my business partner and I asked him, dude, how many messages did we exchange in the last 1 year? And we had a look at WhatsApp, more than 1 million messages, okay? I don't exchange that many messages with my girlfriend. Okay, don't tell her, I hope this is not recorded, okay? But that's the idea. So this is the starting point. The founding team, people who will help you, who will support you, and someone who has the same objectives than you. Okay? You can be different, complementary, but you need to have some common ground. Let me ask you a question here. And no, don't worry, you don't need to speak, just raise your hands. Who had a Nokia in the early 2000s? Raise your hands. Okay? You remember the 3310? This was amazing. One of my friends forgot the phone outside. It was Belgium, raining, okay? It was raining, the phone's still working. It was amazing. Do that today with your phones, okay? Adaptability is key, okay? When I teach entrepreneurship, they always ask me, okay, how can we fight against big companies? They have money, they have people, etc. Adaptability is the answer, okay? Who has a Nokia today? You can raise your hands. No one, okay? Maybe some shy people who don't want to say, but no one has a Nokia today. What happened? World leaders, no need to change anything. Let's not adapt anything. If world leaders had to adapt, imagine small companies. And this is where small companies can actually compete with larger companies, okay, by being more adaptable. I have to admit one thing. I wasn't too positive today when I started this, okay? I have a good news. Adaptability is the best ground for creativity. Crisis time, is the best ground for creativity, okay? More constraints lead to more creativity, actually, which is kind of counterintuitive, but it's how it is based on research. Why? Two main reasons. You will ask yourself questions that you never asked yourself before. For instance, I have a restaurant. How can I keep working with my restaurants if customers cannot come to my place, okay? How can I put my PIN code without touching the device when I'm paying, okay? How can I teach online to people who have no internet? Okay, those questions that we never ask ourselves before. Okay? The other one is the need to update, the need to adapt yourself, not only your strategy, but also to say, okay, we adopt this directly. 2 years ago, who was spending more than 2 days per week on Zoom? You can raise your hands. It's the last time, please. Zoom, 2 years ago, okay? Zoom in the last year, who used it like every day? Almost everyone, okay? The sentence that I use the most in the last 2 years is, oh, sorry, I was on mute. Okay? Sounds familiar? That's the idea. So creativity, amazing during crisis times. The other point is, remember that customers are afraid to spend more money. Uncertainty, changes, risky times, okay? Feedback is key here. You need to do value co-creation with your customers, meaning creating products together. Less risks for them and for you. Okay? And here the big change is feedback. I will not ask you to raise your hands, but did that happen to you? You go to a restaurant. We can go to the restaurants again, so it's good. So you go to a restaurant. The food was very bad. The service was awful. And then you have to pay. The waiter or the waitress arrive, and they ask you, how was it? It was okay. It was terrible. Okay? This is what you need to avoid. So you need to find solutions to avoid this, to have proper feedback that will help you to actually improve your products, your services, or all the activities that you do into the company, okay? The second approach that we used is something that we call, and I guess we are not the only ones, selling before building, okay? Selling before building is that you will expose or show the product or the service to your customers before you're actually building it or performing it. Let me give you a quick example. We do teaching, okay? So we do teach. Before starting building the content of the courses, we validate them with the customers, okay? Once they say yes, we just build them. If we do it firsthand, most probably we will have to change and to adapt things. We lose time, and time is money, okay? And remember, crisis, uncertainty, scarcity of resources, okay? All this, and the last two are mindset. One is continuous improvement, Kaizen. I always try to put one word in Japanese in my conferences, okay? So the idea is this, continuous improvement. And when we show this, we always think about the product or the service. Actually, continuous improvement should be a mindset that you apply to everything, okay? All the activities that you perform, you should think about this case and a continuous improvement approach. How do you do it? By asking yourself questions, okay? I have this belief, and this is completely personal, but I guess some of you will share it, that doing business is about asking questions to yourself and to other people, okay? If you ask the correct questions, you will be able to adapt and to create new things as well, okay? And the last one, we had to select some of them. We could speak about this for hours, but we don't have 4 hours, okay? It's continuous learning, which is also a mindset, okay? You should keep learning all the time. And this could be traditional learning, like getting a degree, getting a PhD, but also learning from experience, okay? It's the best way, I guess. So you test new things with your customers, okay? Could be a new taste for a yogurt, or could be a new approach when you teach, or a new approach when you give a TEDx, okay? And you test it. And based on the feedback and on the comments, again, no, oh, it was good. No, you need to have proper feedback. You will improve, okay? So the learning can come from any place, okay? And any action that you are doing. Let me show you and share with you 2 key tools that we are using, okay? We are using more than 2 tools, okay? We're not that basic. But I can only share 2 with you today, which for me are maybe the most important ones during the crisis. This is a risk matrix, which is very simple, okay? You have the impact, and you have the probability of happening. You remember my customer who filled up for bankruptcy after a few months of activity, and we worked for nothing, okay? If we started using this after that, sadly not before, after. The idea is that we need to understand what would be the impact on us and what is the probability of happening. You can measure the probability of a client going for bankruptcy if he's late more than 100 years for sure, but 100 days, okay? The more days of delay in the payments, the most probability to be in bankruptcy. So once they are here, you should tackle this issue directly. And the objective of this matrix is that you need to solve risks, but you cannot solve them, all of them at once, and you don't have the resources to do it. So you need to prioritize it, okay? That's the first one. The second one is this one that you probably all know, which is a business model canvas. Okay, you probably used it. And people, and when I say people, I include myself at some point of time, normally use it for business plans. Okay? I need to ask a loan, or I need to show what my business is about, I will use this. Actually, we use it for creativity. Okay? When we think about creativity, innovation, people think about new technology and new products or services. What if innovation could be any of those 9 categories here? And I will give you 2 examples that we applied. Basically, you got this, okay? We do teach and we do give conferences, okay? In different languages, we try. English is not the best one, okay? And then we have some competencies and some areas of expertise. The channels on campus and online, as you probably all experienced recently. What if people don't have access to the internet? They don't have the infrastructure. They live in a remote area somewhere, for instance, in South America. We experienced this recently, okay? How can we bring this education to them? And by answering this question and thinking about innovating on this category, we can find a solution for them, which is inclusive, which is fair, and also a business opportunity, okay? So what we found, and we can brainstorm on this at one point of a time, but what we found so far is to upload the content on the devices, and we send them to them. And so they can just have the content, okay? The other idea, or one that I want to share with you, is on the customer segments, okay? Remember Nokia, we have a business, it works well, we have customers, why should we change anything? You should. Just asking the question could be interesting. If you do it, and we did it here, you can have a complete new business model, you can launch new products, you can also have new customers, and even launch a complete new business if it's innovative enough. What we did with the customer segment is like, I see a lot of my students here. They are obliged to be here, but we said, our customer segment are our students, okay? Undergraduate, masters, and MBA students. What if we start targeting unprivileged people? Okay? People who cannot afford education. And we thought about refugees at refugee camps. How can we bring higher education, university-level education to refugees at refugee camps? It's so different of what we are doing, and we need to adapt so many things that it's a complete new activity, okay? Those are the kind of tools that we use for innovation. want to summarize a little bit the takeaways, okay? You have 7 points here, the 6 key tools that or key success factors that I shared with you, and the use of strategic tools, okay? Too often we use strategic tools only for once, and then we forget about it. During crisis time, you should use them every day, okay? The other ones, the founding team, find your beloved business partner, okay? Adaptability, creativity, co-creation through feedback, okay? Continuous improvement, and continuous learning. Let's try to answer the question. Can we learn from our mistakes? I do believe yes, under certain conditions. The first one is the willingness to learn, okay? If you go on campus, you attend classes, but you want to learn, you will not learn anything. It's the same when you are doing business. The other one is being constant and being committed, okay? Remember, 1,000 hours, we don't get paid. We could have stopped there. We decided to continue. This is where we started learning things, okay? It has to have consequences. You drive a car at 100 kilometers per hour, you don't get a fine. Next time you do it again. You get a fine, maybe probably next time you will not do it. Same happened here. If you don't lose money with your mistakes or there is no impact, why should you change anything? No consequences, okay? And the last one is the passion. Okay, my colleagues said it as well. I think this is the motto of everything. When you're passionate by something, you do it even without getting paid. Maybe I shouldn't say it here. But the idea is that passion leads everything, okay? Without passion, we would have stopped after 3 months or 4 months of activity, okay? How can you say, okay, or how can you understand if you are passionate about something? This is the only job I would do for free. Teaching, okay? Sharing knowledge and learning at the end of the day, okay? Just want to make you go home after my 2 colleagues a little bit at ease and telling you that things are getting better, okay? So today where we are, completely different from what we imagined at the beginning, and maybe completely different from what would have happened without the COVID-19, the crisis, and the bad experience with our first customer, okay? Our next big project will be in social entrepreneurship, okay? There is a 7th factor here that I didn't mention, which is being lucky, okay? Being an entrepreneur is being with the correct idea, at the correct place, with the correct people, okay? So we were lucky enough. Our way to give back is to give this higher education at the refugee camps, but I guess this will be for another talk. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Javier, for sharing your idea with us. Feel free to take a small break, and then we'll continue from here. Small one. Talk, maybe. Yeah. 2 days. Systems by another one of our inspirational alumni, Moyo Saka. And she is a lawyer, strategist, and negotiator. And she is here all the way from Geneva to join us here tonight. So please help me to join her onto the...
Thank you for the introduction. Yes, I'm from Geneva tonight, but I bring you learnings from the African continent. Digitalization in present time is a buzzword that everyone is probably even getting tired of. And the impact of the global pandemic on digitalization in the African ecosystems cannot be overemphasized. I cannot go on to talk about this topic without first making reference to Professor Francesco Decci from the Geneva campus for all of his insights and ringing it in my ears throughout the period of my study. Ecosystems, 3 strong words: prepare, adapt, and disrupt. I call it the PAD. And also, Professor Olesia Tomyuk, who I conducted a research with on the impact of digitalization on the African ecosystems. Yes, we are aware that digitalization is a buzzword. Everyone is talking about it. But the real question is, what are we doing about it? And as Gandhi says, action expresses priority. And then the question tonight is, for the African business ecosystems, what is the priority? And how is the ecosystem posturing to benefit and maximize the possibilities that come with the opportunities of digitalization flowing from the impact of the pandemic? We cannot sincerely answer this question without first identifying certain things. There are certain factors that we need to talk about and be honest about it to say, oh, these are the areas of shortcomings. These are the areas where we are erring. These are the areas of mistake that we need to correct. This oftentimes comes down to 2 things: people. And in relation to people, it's about access. Also, the second theme is about law and policy, which is in relation to digital governance and digital security. How can the ecosystems, the African business ecosystems, truly posture and function if these 2 areas are not addressed? In March 2018, there was a coming together of about 55 member states under the body of the African Union to start negotiations on how to better position and how to create an effective and sustainable ecosystem. But the question is, how far have we gone? How far has the negotiations been implemented? And how far are we posturing correctly to benefit from the present realities that we are in? On people and access, the conversations started. But then the focus, as I said earlier, prioritizing what is necessary. The focus at the time was not necessarily on digitalization, it was on many other things. As a result, the issue of the cost of accessibility and connectivity was overlooked. The quality was overlooked. Same for the market entry barriers, as well as many other issues surrounding connectivity in the African continent and to foster, indeed, a good flow of trade and services in the African business ecosystems. And then we start to ask. It's not enough to just identify the mistakes. It's not enough to just talk about the problems. But then, what are we to do? What is this right posture that we're talking about? And again, we can see that in recent times, with the impact of the pandemic, in the African business ecosystems, it is not just about the buzzword digitalization, but now we can see that proactive steps are actually being taken to posture in the right manner and to re-strategize and rethink in order to avoid some of these shortcomings that has been plagued, that the ecosystem has been plagued with. Some of these corrections, or some of these postures that is now being evidenced will be to start to form some partnerships. Because we cannot just say, oh, we have some issues with accessibility. Then what is going to happen? How are the businesses going to perform truly? Because, okay, I have my service that I want to render. You probably have your products that you want to serve to consumers, to customers on the ecosystem that we seek to create. But how do we reach these people? And now we see some institutions coming together to say, okay, let us develop partnerships between the government and between the telecommunication providers to ensure that there is ease of access. And then it does not stop there. There's a particular area that is oftentimes neglected, which is the rural areas. It is very easy to focus all the attention on the city. But what happens to the people in the rural areas? And now we can see that there's a lot of steps taken. Say, for instance, we have some efforts coming from some parts of the Southern Africa. We have some efforts coming from Nigeria. We have some efforts coming from Ghana as well, to mention a few, in order to ensure that there is low-cost accessibility to people in the rural areas, which is expected to help to foster a more collaborative business ecosystem. Aside this, though, remember that Gandhi says, action expresses priority. It does not stop at just seeking to reduce the cost of accessibility. The question you want to ask yourselves, the question we want to ask ourselves tonight is, if the cost is being reduced, can people truly use it? And a practical example will be, say for instance, I have a Tesla, and I have it parked in my garage, and I do not know how to drive. And I refuse to contract the services of someone who can drive it. It's going to remain there for beautification without being put to use. But as much as many of us would love to have a Tesla parked in our garages, it is better to even derive value for its purchase. And what am I saying? If we are able to achieve low-cost connectivity, we also need to support it with digital skills, digital literacy, vocational training, and to ensure that it is actually being put to use. And again, this is part of the issues or the impact, I would say, that the COVID-19 pandemic has positively affected the business ecosystem, or the African continent, as you may, in the sense that you now have countries taking steps. Say, for instance, you have Rwanda targeting the women entrepreneurs to ensure that there is ease of access, and so many other parts of the continent. But it does not stop at just creating infrastructure, which is good. It does not stop at just educating and ensuring that people can use the resources. The business ecosystem is also worried about the fact that if we do all of this, if we change our business models, do we have a robust governance system and regulatory framework to handle the issues that will come as a result of this shift in priority. And there you have it. We need to have definitely a more proactive system of reviewing and changing the regulatory framework and environment. Presently, what is obtainable is a snailish system. This is one of the shortcomings, and this is one of the shortcomings that has been further highlighted by the impact of the pandemic, particularly as it relates to digital governance and digital security. But then what do we do? Again, it is interesting to see that some of the stakeholders in the ecosystem have started to take proactive steps to learn from these mistakes and to make corrections where necessary. I can give you instances of some. You have Mauritius reviewing the Cybercrime Act. We have Kenya making some changes to the regulations and setting up panels and committees to ensure that the necessary things are in place. Nigeria and some other parts of the continent are also taking steps. Now the question is, are these steps effective? Are these steps sufficient? Is the ecosystem posturing correctly to maximize the potentials and possibilities from the impact of the pandemic? One will say it is not conclusive now to say, oh yes, it's a fantastic improvement. But I must confess that it is moving in the right direction. And yes, the African business ecosystem is indeed learning from its mistakes and making changes where necessary. Thank you.
Very interesting, Moisor. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Here with us to close tonight's evening event, we have a Barcelona faculty member, Dr. Elena Emma.
This is Ken. His name could be James, Pedro, or Ahmed. He's a student. He's a guy next door. He's your brother. He's my son. He spent the quarantine in bed, half showered, half dressed, in front of a camera, dark screen, absent, muted, confused. This is Selena, Diana, Dayo. She's her manager. She's your auntie. She is my friend. She spent the quarantine tending to children, juggling household chores, rising expectations of her professional environment, and attending Zoom calls. Exercise online, virtual conference online, family online. She wanted to climb the walls of her apartment and break every single stone in them 25 million times. I'm fine, she says. Really, I'm fine. This is Bart and Sarah, Michael and Inge, you name them. They're your grandparents. They're your neighbors. They're my mom and dad. We spent a quarantine isolating ourselves to protect them. They spent a quarantine isolating themselves to be protected. We are afraid to lose them. When elders go, our maturity is propelled forward. We don't like to grow up. They don't like to die. In March 2020, I was full of plans. I've only lived in Spain for a couple of years by then, and until then, I spent most of my energy invested in building a new life with 2 kids in a brand new country. Finally, kids were okay. My oldest son, a teenager at that point, was attending a new school, hanging out with a group of awesome kids, making music. My youngest son enjoyed his newly found freedom without looming supervision of his brother. As for me, I have just finished my doctorate studies, and I had a submission of my dissertation scheduled for June 2020. I also had a ticket for a romantic weekend with my long-distance boyfriend in his home country. Haven't seen him in a while. I felt like things are falling finally in place. I was excited to have my happiness with my guy on my own terms. Ticket was booked for March 5th. My heart was dancing. I didn't know that a day before my flight, his home country is going to close the borders, and we will break up a year and a half later, still without seeing each other. I didn't know that it will take me another 16 months to finish my PhD, and by the time I'll get there, the only thing that I would feel would be a sense of exhaustion. I didn't know that my oldest son, a teenager, would pour a gallon of water over his laptop in the first week of quarantine, which would lead to a severe case of depression and agoraphobia for almost a year, out of which he would climb out as a loop producer, securing a manager, collabs with artists, and making enough revenue to sustain himself in the United States alone. Or that my youngest son is going to be the only ray of sunshine in my daily existence for God knows how long. When I was younger, I was obsessed with wanting to know my future. I'm glad that in March 2020, I didn't know it. It would have been a brutal disappointment. This is Janine and Samuel, Ari and Rhonda, Svetlana and Vladimir. They're mentors, psychologists, shepherds. They're the representatives of any helping profession that allows people to go through challenges towards their goals. They have the tools of survival in difficult situations. They're lost a lot more often than they admit to. I'm a coach. I'm one of these shepherds. For corporate and business clients, I do it for a hefty fee. For people in need and students, I do it for a cup of coffee. I call it one coffee shift. You buy me a coffee, I help you shift something in your life. Lately, coffee has been virtual. Over the past 5 years that I've been doing this project, I've coached over 250 young people, women, and students altogether. And what has started as a handful of coaching sessions for strangers ended up being a worldwide community of shifting stories. There is someone in almost every corner of the world who owes me a cup of coffee. I like the thought of that. I really like coffee. As a coach, I specialize in high-intensity situations where people are so stuck that they would do anything to get out of the hole they're in. It's high intensity, it's a lot of unknowns, and I like it. I function much better in high intensity. I love the unknown. And so this is my cup of tea, or so I thought before the pandemics. What do you do to maintain sanity as a helper? There are 3 rules, unspoken rules, that everyone knows but nobody talks about. Rule number 1, don't try to help the whole world. It will consume you. Rule number 2, don't bring clients' problems home. It will consume your personal life. Rule number 3, be aware of the zone of your control. Everything else will consume your existence. I was a professional with many years of experience under my belt. These 3 rules have saved me over and over and over the time that I was doing it. Yet it took me only a few weeks of Corona to break these rules and crash like a plane with a broken engine. Most of my clients had an issue with an isolation. It wasn't my case. When I got to Spain, I was alone. And so by the time Corona waltzed around, isolation was my friend. I was very productive, focused. It really helped me. My issue was the staggering and gloomy silence of ghost-like students from one side of the screen and a mirroring silence from my teenager behind the closed door of his room. Another one of my issues was the desperation in the voice of every mother, father, and non-essential worker client that actual business client, non-essential business work client, that has been there for me, mirroring the desperate voice in my own head. I felt stuck. I was stuck. When I'm stuck, I tend to act. So I did. I reached out to every single person I knew physically or virtually and offered what I knew how to do best, a coaching help to get through the crisis. My lines went off the hook. I wanted to help them all. I had to help them all. I really, really had to. This is Jack. He is the darkest hero of my story. He didn't make it. On a starry night, after a very long day, I received a message from one of my employees in a startup that I co-founded that one of our former associates, junior associates, fell out of the window on the 4th floor and died instantly. She just wanted me to know. I remember that day vividly. I was sitting on the balcony, breathing a cool air, drinking a cup of tea with my pink oversized mug, rubbing my neck and shoulders, trying to release some pressure, and feeling that I was going down the hill and losing track of my own life. I felt sorry for myself, and simultaneously, I felt ashamed of feeling sorry. Then I saw the message. I read it, I reread it, I put the phone down and stayed frozen in the chair for about 3 hours, shivering and sobbing. This was a turning point for me. No matter how much I tried, I could not help them all. I felt powerless. This was outside of the zone of my control. Some of them didn't want to be helped. Others didn't have access to me. Hell, I couldn't even help my own son in the room next door. The world was bigger than me. It consumed me, my personal life, and my existence. And then I also felt guilty. Because at the 21st birthday of this young associate, I met his mom. And she was a beautiful woman with straight blonde hair, only slightly older than me now. My son, depressed or not, would wake up next morning or the morning after. Her son would never wake up. I got lucky, and she didn't. This is Nuria, Peggy, Jessica. She's a fighter. Next morning, when I woke up, I was drinking coffee and realized that I could use a 1 coffee shift for myself. So I remembered one of the most impactful books that I've ever read in my life, especially in the beginning of my coaching journey. It was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. There were 2 quotes in particular that spoke to me back then and popped up in my head almost every time when I needed to pick myself up, and they came that morning. Quote number 1 was that our greatest freedom is the freedom to choose our attitude. Quote number 2, an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is a normal behavior. When you're abnormally stuck, here are my 5 abnormal rules how to get out of that scenario. Rule number 1, obsess. Obsession is not healthy. I will repeat it. Obsession is not healthy, but it's useful. According to the Newton law of motion, for every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. So when you're abnormally stuck, obsession over a subject, a dream, a better future, or anything, any kind of situation can actually help you to get out of the rut. My obsession is art. I write, I paint, I love theater. Art is my drug. Art helps me to express myself when I can no longer speak about what's going on inside of me or happens to me. Art is my last and first thread to the numbness of my brain, heart, and soul. Rule number 2, rebel. According to the research, we have access to 27 emotions. Anger is one of those emotions we actually don't like to admit to. Anger, interestingly, is also that emotion that helps us to transition from the point of shock to the point of coping. Think of the time when you feel numb. First you feel nothing, and then you feel pain, and then you might feel anger. Anger is rooted in pain. Anger spreads like fire. Rebelling is transforming anger into action. Boy, did I rebel for the next following weeks. I rebelled against the confinement by taking my son outside around the park when only dog walkers, and essential workers were allowed. I rebelled against the conformity by creating a self-help blog book with all of my illustrations, which listed everything I did in one coffee shift so people could help themselves. I also rebelled against the lack of clarity and recognition of how we all felt during this period. And so I created a list of images, depictions of people that I saw during those days with the way I saw them. These are the images you see on the screen today. I call them my quarantine heroes. They are the product of my rebel and obsession. Rule number 3, choose. Making choices, everything in life is a choice. Making choices helps us to feel power over what's happening to us. But how do we know what's the right choice? For me, that was the answer to the question, what is important for me today? The first time I asked myself that question that morning, I realized that finishing my PhD on time was not on the list. I just didn't care. My mental stamina was needed somewhere else, and I had to choose between my mental health and successful outcome on time. I did not touch my dissertation for another 6 months. Rule number 4, structure. Structure, order, routine. Psychologists agree that when we are in a state of uncertainty, repetitive motions and small wins is what helps us to get out of the situation, have a sense of control, and a sense of self-confidence to build it up. So next time you are completely stuck and you feel like the world is crashing, get up, make coffee, work, tend to your kids, friends, family, work, make art, eat, tend to kids, friends, family, free time, go to bed, wake up, repeat. And the last rule is hope. When all plans fail, hope remains. Fyodor Dostoevsky said that to live without a hope is to cease to live. Hope is only useful at the time of desperation, but if you choose to live, you inevitably choose to hope. This is Monica, Teresa, Rafi. She's graduating this year, and she hopes that all the knowledge that she has received during the quarantine year is actually going to help her to propel her future career. This is Janeka and Tiffany, Tuta and Kami, Sandy and Susan. They are former colleagues. They had a major fallout during the quarantine over the project that didn't work out, but they've reconciled, and now they hope to start a campaign for a post-pandemic support of working mothers. This is Roger and Erica, whatever that is for you. They're part of the movement, #LoveIsNotTourism. They hope that love will win after all. Love is important to them. What is important to you today? What is your hope? Thank you.
Thank you. What an amazing way to end all of our ideas and all the talks for today. We would like to say a massive thank you to the speakers, and we would like to invite you up. We have a few small gifts for you, so feel free to come up.
Thank you.
I don't.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well done. Well done.
Sorry. Thank you.
Maybe they want to take pictures. We would also like to say a massive thank you for your attendance and attention tonight, and we hope you enjoyed the first TEDx Geneva Business School Barcelona. Yes. Thank you.
Please be sure to scan the registration QR code so we know your feedback on the event if you haven't done so already. And now we invite you to join us in the cafeteria area where you can have refreshments and a light dinner.